Charlie Dixon get through training this morning? Is he going to play on Saturday?
Well, we haven't had match committee yet, so for me to announce it before that would be wrong. But yeah, look, clearly Charlie, Ollie, Ebo, obviously in our best 22 players. So it's not a matter of if they come back; it's when. So our determination is really is this the right time? And Charlie's probably a little bit different to the other two in that he's had a bit more limited preparation. So that'll get discussed, but I'd say it's a fairly strong chance he'll come back. Yeah.
Is it, I suppose, a consideration? He's been playing mainly from the goal square and the inside and the forward 50 in his two Sanford games. Is it a consideration you have to sort of go up the ground and do that defensive sort of work if he wants to come back against Geelong on Saturday?
Yeah, well, we certainly can't become one-dimensional all of a sudden. So the expectation is that he gets up and down the ground like any other forward. So our determination is just, has he got the right conditioning to be able to do that? He certainly looks fantastic in what he's been able to do, and he's had parts of his game in the Magpies where he has got up the field and then parked himself a little bit deeper. So, I mean, we'll expect both if he plays this week. It's probably more around his normal role, but we also can't be one-dimensional. He has to be able to play up the ground at times and then be able to put himself deep if we need it.
Ollie as well?
Yeah, again, they're probably the three that are more likely to come back into the team for sure. So Ollie's had now 2 really strong weeks. It was really impressive on the weekend. Almost got stronger as the game went. I'd probably say the same with Ebo. They just got better as the game progressed. So if we have to put them in there, then we feel pretty confident that they'll be right to go.
What are you going to do with Dougal?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? So he's been a bit of a utility for us. Needed where our most pressing needs are. So, I mean, given the fact that Charlie's coming back, it does give us more flexibility in that area and what we do with Doug. Again, it hasn't been determined what that looks like, but he's certainly been able to plug a fairly important role for us in the last couple of weeks and added some real speed in our forward half. And when the ball's been on the floor, he's been able to chase and harass and provide a presence for us. So, I guess the question for us to come out of match committee is do we continue to progress with that, or is he needed back?
What's the juggling act like then with, you've obviously got Paddy and Scott that rest forward at times, throw Charlie in there like a 1-2 big. Can you talk us through how you're going to sort of balance that?
Well, I think that's the chat. Are you going with the 3 talls, or do we have to stay with our 2 talls that we've been playing? Again, we've got to balance that out with the pressure that we need on the floor. I mean, it's one thing to own the air, but the majority of the game is played at ground level, and where the other factors are with Geelong and their ability to be able to control that back half of the ground really well. I mean, they've probably got the best back shape in the competition right now, and support defence has been really elite. So we've got some challenges in that space and a fair bit to chat through. So it makes for an interesting match committee at the very least.
Did Hammer train at all today?
No, he didn't. So he's just part of his management. So we've got to remember where Hammer's come from and how he's travelling at the moment. So it's just normal management of the load for him.
So you'd be likely to play another Sandgreen, or would you?
Oh no, Hammer will stay where he is. Yeah. Again, we get to round 13 and various players will have rests at different sessions. So it just fits into that category. Really, he's fine.
Where's Tom Rockcliffe at? Still a chance for this week with his hamstring, or another week?
No, he won't play. He won't play this week. He probably pulled up a little bit sore last week after getting to some top end speed, and just wasn't happy with how it was progressing. So we took a little bit of a step back with that, and we'll build him up this week with a view of getting a full week of training into him next week. So won't play this week, but we're obviously hoping that he'll build his load into next week's game.
So it's been 3 or 4 weeks. It's been 3 or 4 weeks since he did that hamstring down the Launceston against Hawthorn. You took him over to China thinking he had a good chance. In hindsight, was that a mistake? Has that sort of delayed his?
No, I don't think so, because a lot of it's around the symptoms based, and he's had a really minor reporting. So it's been felt that it's been manageable, but as it's been stepped up, he hasn't been able to complete the full amount that's required. So as a result of that, I think the guys have taken the position to just take a step back and rebuild his load and then get him right. So that's just where we're at now.
So next week with him?
I would hope so. Yes. Yep.
Just you talked about a lot of things with the boys coming back and where they're fit and all that, but is there a balance response to does anybody pay the price of what happened last weekend?
Oh, I don't like to use the word paying the price. I mean, we look at form just not in what happens in one game, but what is taken over 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So we balance all that up, plus what we want to go in with. So I think it's too simplistic to say that someone has to pay a price for what happened last week. I mean, we take a view of what happened on the weekend, but we'd like to think we're not Monday experts, and we can actually take a longer term view rather than just rock up Monday and have a different one to last week.
Is there a bit of pressure on Voss, given that this is potentially the best side you'll put out on the park? I mean, if you're up against the league leaders with pretty much, give or take, your best side, you'll get a pretty good reading of where you're at. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, we don't certainly feel any more pressure than previous weeks. I mean, every 4 points you play is equally important. No, not really, because our expectations remain the same. We still expect the same players to compete. We still expect them to get their jobs done, and we still expect them to play a certain way. So that doesn't change for us week to week. What does change is the opponent, and we've got a good challenge ahead of us. I mean, Geelong they're the form team in the competition. One team's been able to find their way through Geelong so far this season, so it's a big challenge. But we've also put in place some really good form, but it hasn't been for long enough. So whenever you play against really good sides, they ask you to play that way for longer, and that's what we're going to demand this week, no matter who's out in the park.
So perhaps to rephrase, not extra pressure, then you'll probably get a read of whether you guys can mix it with the best teams, given who's on the park again. I mean, that's probably the defining factor, is that you haven't been this strong for most of the season.
No, the defining factor for us is that we've shown a capacity, but we have to do it for longer. So that's the defining part that we want to make sure that that we need to get some shift on. So, I understand that there's been some focus on our first quarters. Well, the last 2 weeks our first quarters have been good, and our last quarter this week wasn't so flash. So, we feel like we've got a strong brand that can really mix it with any side. But the thing we have to make sure that we get, though, is that we have to get it over that entire 4 quarters. And when you play against any opposition, but certainly the best, then we have to make sure we're right on for the entire game.
How does what happened in the West, Rossi, how does it happen in the game the whole time, and then to go scoreless in that final quarter? How does something like that happen in such a big game?
Well, I couldn't answer it absolutely specifically, but certainly we felt like it was a real bash and crash game. There was some real finals intensity in terms of the pressure around the ball, and we played with some frenetic speed at times. And Freo played quite a fast brand, but there were certainly times we needed to control the ball, and we weren't able to do that. And that might have had an impact on with the bash and crash and trying to play as fast as what we were for as long as what we did. It might have just taken the edges off late in the game. So, we also felt like there were some little things that we just didn't get right. I mean, in the end, our contest fell away. So we have to sustain that part of the game to be able to get other parts of our system to be able to work.
Just personally, do you want to be a head coach again? Have you thought about the vacancies, obviously, at North and Carlton, and thought about where that might lead for you?
I've got to be honest, I haven't actually thought a hell of a lot about it in the last few weeks. I got asked about it probably, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I responded in a way that, my position hasn't changed. I come back initially to look at a head coaching role at some stage. The determining factor is that now, and so that position hasn't changed. But right now, you've got to appreciate it's a public nomination only. There's been no process that's been followed through on, nothing that I've certainly heard of. And so until that does, for me, it's about the job that I've got and doing the best you possibly can. And we've got a pretty important opponent this week in a really important game. So your focus doesn't really shift on that until that situation changes. Oh, of course you think that you are going to be. I'm pleased that there's a conversation in the industry right now around experience and the benefit of what that looks like. I'm really pleased. I don't think we've had that conversation for a very long time, like a proper conversation, and it seems to be happening right now. Clearly, I'm going to have a biased view based on where I sit. So for that's for other people to discuss and chat about. All I get to do is just do my job, and then hopefully we get the 4 points this week.
Why do you feel like you'd be better experienced?
You get asked this question a fair bit. I mean, in some ways, I frame it a little bit like, you're a 19-year-old player, and at 200 games, you're different. You know more, you've learnt more, you learn more leadership. You learn what you value and what you don't. It just is gained over a period of time and playing and getting exposure. And so it's a very hard one to say what are those specifics, because there's, what are we looking at? We're looking at sort of 10 years of time that's passed from the time that I stepped into where I am now. So clearly it's going to be different.
Awesome. Did you ever pinch anyone on the footy field?
I probably did. And I probably got pinched too, but the good thing was I got to hit them back. So the rules have somewhat changed. I've been asked this quite a fair bit. The reality is that the landscape has changed, hasn't it? It's I think it was really handled well from both clubs. The reality is that the player that is getting it can't protect themselves as much as what they used to be able to. You're a bit freer in what you could do and interpret your own rules the way you wanted it to. But now it's changed, because if any retaliation happens, that's going to be a direct consequence to that person. So I think it needs to be treated pretty importantly, because if that's happening on the football field, there's no chance for retaliation. Well, you could, but you'll find yourself in trouble.
Do you know if any of your players, when you played Hawthorn a few weeks ago, do you know if they...
No, I don't think so. No, nothing that I could certainly report. So, the thing I'll say is that sometimes what we put the lens on when we sit outside the white line, and what we're asking these guys to do is they go out there and they compete as hard as they can, and they walk the white line, and they tread that real fine edge about how they go about things. And it's not unusual for players to be able to sometimes step over that, but that's why we have the system and why we have what we have, because you get that correction. People get a bit of a lie of the land, and then you go forward again. So, but this won't be the last time that we see someone stepping over the line, and it certainly is not the first time. It certainly won't be the last, I would imagine.
Just with the coaching, would you apply for either of them if you were approached?
I'll worry about that when that comes to it. So it's certainly not on the radar as I speak today.
In a hypothetical world, would you feel like...
I don't like hypotheticals. Sorry.
Do you feel like you're in a mental space and a place in your career where you'd be comfortable and confident to go into a senior role though?
I do. Yes, I do. I feel like that the experience has been gained. Obviously the roles have changed over a period of time, and you develop a skill set over time. I think I've said I've said this before, and I don't mind saying it again. If more my name won me my first role, I'm hoping that the skill sets win me my second, and there's no doubt that clearly my name was an influencing factor to the last time around. But the time's been spent to try and go back and better yourself and make yourself better at what you do, and hopefully it's for different purposes this time.